Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce John Krout, presenter and newsletter contributor for the Potomac Area Technology and Computer Society in Virginia. John has been writing about creative uses of personal computers since the early 1980s, and now he writes about smartphones, tablets, and digital cameras. He retired in 2021 after working as a federal contractor software engineer for 30 plus years, and he lives in Arlington, Virginia, with his son, many computers, digital cameras, and too many cats. John will show us how geocaching has become a worldwide outdoor game, the first such game based on computers and the web. You'll see a few of the most interesting caches found by the presenter in 45 U.S. states. Finally, John will show us how to get started in our own area and how to create an anonymous amount of geocaching.com. Now I turn the presentation over to John. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, everyone. This, like so many other things related to personal computers, got us started in the space program. I was very interested in what Mr. Schulman presented here in the past hour. This photo behind me is a picture I shot at Wallops Island of the launch of the Antares spacecraft carrying a resupply to the International Space Station a year ago. As it happens, the entire game of geocaching is based on another space program called the Global Positioning System that was created by the U.S., first put into use in the 90s. And then, it, among other things, it became a game. We're going to learn all about that. I'm about to start my slide deck now. All right, let's see here. And I'll get rid of that floating meeting controls. There's our first slide. This is the intro to geocaching presentation. Now let's talk about what it means. The word is literally based on two root portions, geo meaning earth, and cache meaning a hidden container. So the game involves hidden containers that can be found somewhere on Earth. It's been extended a bit now. There's, believe it or not, there's even one on the International Space Station. It costs a fair amount of money to get there, however. How was it started? Well, it was invented by a man in Portland, Oregon. He was a hiker who, like his hiker friends, owned a handheld GPS receiver to help him mark interesting places he found on his hikes and also help him find his car when he wanted to get back to it. He hid a box in the woods and used his GPS receiver to determine the map coordinates of that hidden box. And then he sent those coordinates by email to his hiker friends and challenged them to find that box in the woods. And he found out very quickly that his hiker friends loved the challenge. They asked him to do more of it, and some of them even did it themselves. And that's how the game got started. And it mushroomed from there. Now there is a website, geocaching.com, and that website includes a page for each and every one of the geocaches on this planet. In each of those individual cache pages, you will see the cache name, a database identifier for the cache, coordinates, description, terrain and difficulty ratings, date of creation, and cache owner. And I didn't mention it here, but there's also something extra useful, an encrypted hint on for most of them. Cache owners don't always provide that information, but in many cases it can be very valuable. On geocaching.com, you can search for and map geocaches by zip code or town name. Each cache icon on the map is a link to the cache webpage, so you can go and read all the details, including written logs by people who have found that cache in the past. How many are there? Well, quite a few as it happens. 2.7 million or so worldwide. The number fluctuates up and down every day as old ones are retired and new ones are created. And just a bit over 1 million inside the United States. Where are they hidden? Well, forests, parks, parking lots, city streets. There seem to be a lot of them around Walmarts in the US. Lots of different places. Some of those places, to put it lightly, are quite creative. All caches contain a logbook or a log strip, which you sign when you find it. You put in your account name from geocaching.com and the date on which you find it. And finally, on the website, you can go back to the page for the geocache which you found and type a log entry. And you can say something as simple as, I found it, or thanks for the cache, or you can report details. Now, let's talk for a minute about why you should care. Why is this something you might be interested in? First of all, hiking to find caches in parks is good physical exercise. Second of all, searching is good mental exercise. When you get near to a cache, ask yourself this question: where would I hide it? And that'll help you find it. You can meet other geocachers out there and share some stories. You can help a cache owner by reporting problems at a cache. You can write in your log entry on geocaching.com, for instance, if the logbook is wet, if insects have gotten into the cache, if the coordinates are wrong, sometimes they're off by 40 feet or more. Also, geocaching is a great way to break up a long road trip. Often caches are placed close to interstate exits. So when you get off the interstate for a meal, to refuel, or maybe for a bathroom break, check to see if there's a cache nearby. Kids are absolutely fascinated by the geocaches that contain trade goods, also called swag. Often those trade goods include kids' toys. Most states permit geocaches at highway rest stops. So when you get out to stretch your legs, do it creatively. Look for a geocache. Geocaches are welcome in state parks. And in some cases, state park staff themselves place geocaches in state parks. Caches are often hidden in places that are just plain out of the way, or historically interesting, or simply beautiful. So you get a variety of experiences when you're looking for geocaches. Now I'll tell you how I got started. When I started working for a living, I was often sent out to some city to accomplish something, and I started collecting maps, initially book maps of the cities I visited. Then I read an article about geocaching in the November 2002 edition of a publication called Recreation News, which is distributed in the Washington metro region where I live. And I thought it was just fascinating. I already owned one GPS receiver, global positioning system receiver, and I decided to buy a hiking GPS receiver. So I got that in the next few months and then began finding geocaches in March 2003, 18 years ago. During that summer, my family found geocaches while we were on vacation, first in Delaware and later in West Virginia. And since then, I have visited 44 U.S. states. Well, I've visited more than that, but I found geocaches in 44 U.S. states while traveling. And hiking is to find geocaches in various state and national parks, and county parks for that matter, has improved my health. My heart rate is down and my blood pressure is down. Now I'm going to introduce you to some of the jargon. Every widely shared hobby or game has its own jargon. A geocache, as you might guess, is a hidden container with details on a page of geocaching.com. Geocaching is the process of finding geocaches, playing the game. A geocacher, sometimes just called a cacher, is a person who finds geocaches, who plays the game. And guess what the rest of the world is called? Muggles. What a surprise. In fact, there's even a word muggled, which refers to the status of a missing or stolen geocache. Finally, something that you'll see when you start looking at the geocaching.com map, there are caches that are called premium, and those are caches with coordinates visible only to cachers who pay for a premium account. A free account will let you see the vast majority of caches, but you can pay $30 a year to get a premium account to see even more. All right, who creates them? How do they get out there in the first place? Well, geocachers create geocaches. They do it basically as a way of sharing the fun, of giving back to the community of other geocachers. The creator of a geocache is known as a cache owner. That's often abbreviated CO. And the CO has a responsibility to keep the cache in good working condition. Provide a new log when the old one is full or mildewed or drenched, for instance, or to provide a new geocache when the old one is broken or stolen. I know of one gentleman in Maryland who literally has placed and maintains, get this, 1,200 geocaches. Now, let's suppose that you decide you want to do this. You want to play the game. This is how you get started. You go to geocaching.com. They have a button to sign up, to create your own free account. And to do that, you have to provide an account name, 19 characters, a password, and an email address. Now, here's what I suggest. First of all, an account name. Never, 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 never use your own name. Keep it anonymous. For the email address, I suggest you create an email address on a free service such as Gmail or Yahoo, and keep it anonymous too. Don't use your name as in front of the @ sign for the email address. And that way you can remain completely anonymous on geocaching.com. People will not be able to track you or associate you with accounts you might have on other websites. Now, after you do that and you log into geocaching.com, you can search for caches. You can do that using a city name, a town name, a county name, a parish name, a zip code. You can even use the name of an entire state, or in Canada, a province. Geocaching.com will show you a list of caches and provide a button so that you can see a map of the caches listed when you do a search. And in the map, each cache symbol on the map is a link to the cache web page. Now we're going to see a demo of that. I'm going to switch my, went a little bit too far there. I'm going to switch my share so that we can see my web browser. There we go. And I'll once again hide the floating meeting controls. Now, this is the homepage of geocaching.com. Well, no, it's not quite the homepage. I already signed in. And my account name is Dreamer of Pictures. What I'm going to do is type in Chicago. Now, there's more than one Chicago in the world, but we're going to use the one everybody knows, Chicago, Illinois. Click on the search button. And within a 10-mile radius of the center of Chicago, the system has found 993 geocaches. Over here on the right, we have a button called Map These Geocaches. I'm going to click that. And we open another tab in the browser, and it shows us a map. I'm going to close that pane on the left. It shows us a map of the area around the center of Chicago and various symbols for geocaches in that area. Now, for example, I'll click on one over here, which is named September 16th. The name popped up. If I click on it, I get a summary of some other information, the difficulty rating and the terrain rating. I'm going to open the cache page, which shows up in yet another tab of the browser. And this is what a page for an individual geocache looks like. So it has the name of it. It has the name of the person who hid the geocache, in this case, an account named Calendar Friends. It has the coordinates of the geocache. It has a description. We're going to scroll down a little bit to see that. And quite a long description as it happens. Okay, this one does not have a hint available for it. In addition, there are logs shown by people who have found the geocache, and sometimes you can see things in these logs that will give you some help in finding the cache. So it's worth it to take a look at these things. Also, you may find somebody reports they didn't find it. And here's one person, Eagle Eye 2020 Twins, who didn't find the geocache, and they reported it on the website. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the slide deck, but that gives you a sense of the sorts of things that you can learn on geocaching.com about an individual. I'll mention one other thing about an individual cache. If you click on View Gallery, you can actually see photographs. Now, these, in this particular case, don't look terribly revealing about the nature of the geocache, but I can tell you the width of the log, in this case, a log strip, suggests that it's a pretty small container. And if we go back and look at the main page, the size rating is a size called micro. Now, we'll talk about size ratings a little bit more in a few minutes. All right, now let's go back to the slide deck. Yeah, let's see here. There it is. Okay, I'll hide the floating meeting controls and we'll go on to the next slide. Size ranges. Large is defined on geocaching.com as 5 or more liters. It starts at about 1.5 gallons. And that includes examples of sealed buckets or aircraft ammo boxes like the one depicted here. Regular size, 1 liter up to 5 liters. A typical example is an ammo box like is shown here, or a gallon plastic jar. Small, 100 milliliters to 1 liter. An example would be a big bison tube, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Matchstick holder, which is depicted here, tethered to, that's not a real bird, obviously, but tethered to a pigeon. Tins for lozenges or tobacco also. When I first gotten started in the 2003 time range, Altoid tins were immensely popular as geocaching containers. And finally, micro. What you see here is called a bison tube. It is less than 100 milliliters in capacity. A 35 millimeter film bottle is another example. And those are fairly popular too. Now, this one that I've just added is a very, very, very small bison tube. It is called a nano cache. This bison tube is 3/8 of an inch tall and 3/8 of an inch wide, and it has space in it between the body and the threaded cap for a 1/4 inch wide strip of paper to use as the log. Now, some examples of cache containers. I mentioned ammo boxes. Here's another picture of an ammo box. Plastic ammo boxes are popular now in part because they are less expensive than metal ammo boxes, but they also do not keep out water as well as regular metal ammo boxes. Plastic containers for food. These are also popular again because they're inexpensive, but they also have some problems keeping out the weather. Pelican and otter cases are amazingly weatherproof, and also you have to pay for that capability because they are very, very expensive. Finally, little bison tubes. And these, if you buy them in a group, you might end up finding that they cost less than $1 each. All right, now we're going to talk about things that are hidden in plain sight but do not look like containers. And these I call fabulous fakes. Often a fake mailbox, either on a pole or on a building, is actually a geocache. Something that's used very widely, a fake rock key holder, fake lawn watering head key holder. Those are a little more expensive, so they're not used as frequently. I have even seen fake electrical junction boxes on a utility pole or on a building used as geocache containers. And there's one I really love. It was on a chain link fence at a restaurant near Annapolis. Fake red reflector. It's magnetic. You pull it off and there's a little space in the back for a log strip. Here are some of the usual hideouts. Guardrails are popular. Road signs are popular, especially for nano caches. Lamppost skirts. If you don't know what that means, you'll see an example in a moment. Knot holes. And boy, do I hate micros in the woods because there's just too many places to hide them. Where do you start? Hollow trees and fallen trees, tree limbs. You saw the bison tube with the green color hanging on the tree limb. I want to mention one other thing before we go on our virtual field trip. Trackables are items that exist to be moved from one cache to another. Some of them have specific goals. I found one a few days ago here in Virginia that had the goal of visiting all the provinces in Canada. Why it was in Virginia, I will never understand. These things can be purchased online or in person at Geo Woodstock and other large geocaching events. I purchased the one shown here at a Geo Woodstock event in Texas 2 years ago. They're also known as travel bugs and geocoins. This one is coin shaped. I was a coin collector when I was a kid, and I think these ornate things are just wonderful. Each of these trackables bears a unique tracking identifier issued by geocaching.com so that you can report that you picked it up from one cache, and they can track the fact that you have it until you report putting it in another cache. And I've circled the identifier on this particular coin. They put it on the edge. I thought that was very clever. Now we're going to go on our virtual field trip. This is a video I made recently to show you various types of caches, and I'll get that started here. Let's go over to the video player, and I want to optimize that. There we go. We'll share that, hide the floating meeting controls, and start the video. Welcome to the sound of cicadas.
This is an example of what we call park and grab. Only have to walk a few steps once I get out. This is a lamp post. There's the lamp way up there, and of course has a concrete base and a little surround here on the bottom called a skirt, and it's liftable. And let's see what's underneath. A magnetic key holder. Get that out. All right, so we'll take a look inside. This one's easy to slide open one-handed. There's the log, and I was the last person to find it. There's my initials for Dreamer Pictures and the date on which I found it. So let's put that back in. Those things, though they're very small, can often have coins or other small things as trade items. Here we are on a bicycling trail that's close to an interstate highway. You can hear the cars. It's also got a historical graveyard. Not only is this American Revolutionary War soldier here, but also two people who died of lightning strikes. Now, you can also see the guardrail by the bicycling path. They want to make sure bicycles don't fall down the steep hillside here. But it turns out there's also a geocache in this guardrail. Let's go take a look, see if we can find it. Now, you'll notice these support posts here are wood. Sometimes they're metal instead, and often a geocache is hidden in the gap between the post and the metal. And here is one of them. Let's see if I can pull it out. I'm going to set the phone down and just push it out here. There we go. This is a fairly typical hide. Sometimes they're magnetic and they're placed in the end of a guardrail. We'll open up the geocache and you can see plastic bag with a log in it, and actually a pen and a pencil as well. And it looks like there's another piece of paper in there and a couple of kids' toys. Okay, we'll pack that back up and rehide it. All right, here's another typical hideout for geocaches. This is, these are rather two large power transformers for the local businesses in this part of Falls Church. I last found this geocache in 2013, and it's changed a bit. Originally, it was I believe, a magnetic key holder on the back of this transformer. What I found today was this little birdhouse that's kind of wrecked, and that made me wonder, was the geocache in there? And then I found this down here on the ground. There's the pieces of the little birdhouse and a pill bottle with some camouflage tape on it, and that's almost a dead certainty when you see the camouflage tape that it's geocache. So let's open it up. Now this is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to have to prop up the camera and then use two hands. All right, there we go. Let's see here, paper log right on top. There it is, and more paper log. It's one of the things that cache owners should do occasionally when there's multiple pieces of paper. Come take the old ones out. There's also some trade goods and a trackable. This is a type of trackable called a path tag, and I don't know, yeah, you can sort of see it through the cellophane. Let's put that back in. Little plastic ring, we'll put that back in, and collect all the logs. And the coins, there were 2 quarters, we'll put those back in. There we go. Stuff in all of the logs. There's another one on pink paper, and this sticker. So this one's big enough to have some trade goods in it. All right, in the center of the frame you can see a stump. A few years ago I found a geocache in that stump, and it's since been relocated over in this direction, and I'm pretty sure it's here at this triple trunk tree. It's a nano cache, and it's a little bit unusual to hide a nano cache, particularly a magnetic nano where there's no magnets. What I see down here is a piece of wood that resembles the wood where I found it initially, and let's get that out. And sure enough, there it is. A little magnetic nano has been embedded in the end of the piece of wood. So we would unscrew it and pull out the tiny log strip that fits inside. This thing is about 3/8 of an inch in diameter and 3/8 of an inch tall, with a screw cap, and usually the paper inside is a 1/4 inch wide strip. This is a sidewalk on the edge of a retailer in Arlington County, and the hint for this cache says it's electric. So we've got a lot of electric panel boxes here, utility boxes for one purpose or another. And I think when I first found it, which was a few years ago, it was actually underneath. So I looked underneath all of these and I didn't find it. But if you walk around and take a look, here on the street side, there is a utility panel kind of cover for an electric socket that really has no business being there. And it turns out it's magnetic, and underneath it is a log strip. There's the log strip, and somebody's left something, I think another path tag, yeah. And this cache owner actually pinned the bag under one of the magnets. So it's real easy to get the geocache out, because the resealable part of the bag is at the other end, and then put it back in and get the plate back in place, just like that. Okay, well, this next one we're looking for is not quite a park and grab. You have to walk a ways from the nearest parking. I'm just about up there now. You have to know what to look for on this one. You know, I'm about to show you what I mean. These posts for these chain link fences are hollow. And you'll notice this one here doesn't have a cap on it. And in fact, there's a tiny little bit of fishing line. You can just see it glinting there. Yeah, it's a slightly better angle. I'm going to pull on that. This fishing line is actually tethered to a vine, of all things. And what did we find at the end of the fishing line? Down in that hollow post, there is a geocache. And this is a fairly large bison tube. It's camo painted, which means it was probably done commercially, that paint job. Okay, I got the cap off. This one has a plastic bag containing the log. There's the log. I signed this one a year or so ago. I'm going to put it back in the tube. There's nothing else in the tube as it happens. Okay, and no evidence of water seepage into the tube. You know, there's even a pencil in there. I just realized that. Inside the bag, there's a wooden pencil for signing the log. So I probably can reattach this with one hand. Let's find out. Put the lid back on the container. Yeah, and you can see a black line there between. That's called an O-ring. It's rubber, and it can be compressed, and when you tighten it enough and it's compressed, it keeps the water out. That's a good thing to have. Okay, here we are in another county park where I live, and we're going to look at another typical type of hiding place. This little path that you see here is not part of the official mapped pathways, hiking trails within this park. However, this is what park managers often call a social trail, meaning it was created simply by people walking the same path over and over. And indeed, in geocaching parlance, this is known as a geotrail because it gets us very close to the cache. All right, here's a stump, and when you see objects piled up in something that looks like might have been done by human beings and not by nature, there might be something underneath it. Let's take a look. Yes, sir, there it is. Let's pull that one out. Take a look at it. Okay, this is a type of container where the lid has locking, or, well, actually in this case it's the body has locking tabs, and the lid is actually hinged. This is a variant of a type called Lock and Lock, might even be a brand name, and you can see the sticker that the cache owner placed on top. So this is actually a fishing type box. It has a cut down mini composition book for a log. Has some trade goods in it too, has a pen. It's in good shape, no water within. Pleasant surprise after the kinds of hurricane-like rains we've had lately. Actually, not hurricane-like, but it did set some records, and we have the remnants of a Hurricane Fred, now Tropical Storm Fred, that skirted by us on the way to New England yesterday. Oh, I'm now in Fairfax, Virginia, very close to the corner of Little River Turnpike and the Beltway, which is Interstate 495. This is a recreation area with a part of a very long path hiking trail in Fairfax County called the Cross County Connector. And we're going to walk a little bit of it. It's nicely paved here, useful for bicyclists. And I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm about a quarter mile from the cache, a little over 1,500 feet. Okay. The hint for this says it's on the backside of a fallen tree, which is supported by the Y of a much younger tree. And you can actually see up there the stump, tall stump of the fallen tree, and it fell through a much younger tree which still supports it. The term backside is a little ambiguous, and it's been several years since I was here, and I think I've found it. Let's take a look here. There it is, under a little bit of a geopile. You can just see the ammo box, and it's still here after all these years. I'm going to pause this for a moment so I can get it out, and then we'll take a look at its contents. Okay, it's open. The log is in, that's an interesting title for a logbook. Log's in a package right there. Here's some trade goods.
All right, let's switch back to the slide deck, and we've got a few more things to discuss. There we go. Hide the floating meeting controls and go on to the next slide. There are some custom-built geocaches. This fake birdhouse is probably, there's a lot of fake birdhouses that are geocaches. But this one is pretty elaborate. The bottom three birdhouses are real. The one in the middle that extends upwards is in fact where the geocache is hidden. This is in Southern Virginia. Something I found several times, 2 plastic bottlenecks. You cut off the bottlenecks of 2 identical bottles and then glue the bottlenecks together. There's a plastic screw cap on each end. That makes a pretty good small geocache. Another one I think is really nice, a PVC pipe with a screw threaded end cap. You can get these sorts of things at home improvement stores or sometimes hardware stores, and they're roomy and they fit in very tight spaces. I've even seen a couple of custom machined metal cylinders. I think these were made by people who took a metalworking course at a community college. And finally, the latest thing, I encountered this a few weeks ago on Slaughter Beach in Delaware, 3D printed containers. One of them was a wooden branch. Didn't look very wooden, you know, it was the right color, but it had that plastic sheen, and an acorn. Both of them were hollow, and both of them had a log strip inside. There are some really, truly oddball geocaches. A flashlight where the log paper is where the battery compartment is inside the battery compartment instead of batteries, or sometimes wrapped around batteries. A portable CD player. Now, after I found a few of those flashlights, when I came across the CD player, guess what? I looked in the battery compartment and there was nothing there. Then I opened the top of the CD player and there was a CD inside with a label on it, which was the log. And I signed that. Plastic insects. I've found a few of these, like this ladybug depicted here. I found on US 113 in Southern Delaware. it has a bison tube sticking out that forms its abdomen. And then, of course, there's a log inside to sign. This one is one of my favorites. This is a 1940s fire truck in Arizona. And the logbook was hidden inside the water line in the back, which is on the left here. This is arguably the largest geocache container in the entire world.
John, you have about 9 minutes left.
Thank you, sir. Now, in New Mexico, in the desert, I found a geocache that is a used plastic shotgun shell. It is tethered by wire to, of all things, a pencil sharpener on a metal post. Now, those things are there basically so the shotgun shell would not blow away in the wind. And inside the shotgun shell is a log strip. No plastic bag around it, just a log strip. But then again, they only get about 8 inches of rain a year at that site. And some interesting hideouts. Deep inside a standing hollow tree. If the opening is, say, up 2 or 3 feet from the ground, it turns out there's a geocache inside and a lanyard or chain that is tethered near the hollow opening that allows you to pull up the geocache. And I'll give you a tip. The way I found this was by sticking my smartphone inside and shooting a flash photograph. And that allowed me to see the geocache and the chain. Caches are sometimes tethered high up on a tree. So the tether is tied off at the ground. You untie the tether, allow the cache to come down, sign the log, put it back in the container, pull the tether up so that, to restore the cache to its high perch, and then tie it off on the ground level again. There are a few that are indoors. The ones I found are at National Park visitor centers, including the Painted Desert Inn in Petrified Forest National Park. There are also occasionally in public libraries, there are fake books. In Oakland, Maryland, there is a fake book in the public library, which is in fact a geocache. I found one I'm especially proud of on the vertical face of a waterfall in the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. The waterfall wasn't running very fast that day, not much water. It hadn't rained for several days. So there's only one tiny portion of the vertical face that had water on it, and I was able to climb down from the dry horizontal area above it and find the geocache in an OtterBox, which, believe me, for that context was the right container to use. There's another one which I thought was fascinating. I was standing on a cliff. The cliff was about 50 feet tall, and I was standing on the top of it because that was easy to access from parking at Bear Rocks, which is part of the Dolly Sods Wilderness. And I realized that that cliff facing east, water that fell down that cliff went to the Chesapeake, and water that fell where I stood went west to the Mississippi. So that's called the Eastern Continental Divide. And there was a geocache 3 feet down, a PVC pipe. I wasn't willing to climb down there, but my son was, and he found it. And that brings up a subject that you need to be aware of, hazards around some geocaches. Occasionally in guardrails or lamppost skirts, there are wasp nests. And that can be a painful experience. And I'm going to show you some ways to minimize the risk. Insects generally are a hazard, particularly in forests, including mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. I call them the vampire trio. Poison ivy can be underfoot. Wild raspberry and other vines with lots of thorns. And oh, I hate those. Holly tree leaves. Why somebody will ever hang a bison tube in a holly tree, I don't know. But it's awfully painful to reach in there because the leaves have little spikes on them. Spider webs. I don't view spider webs as a bad thing. They do us a great favor. Spiders capture and eat mosquitoes and other insects. However, spider webs sometimes block your access to a geocache. I found one in Delaware recently that the geocache was on the ground and the horizontal spider web was 2 inches above it. So I had to knock down the spider web. Junk cars. A lot of parks on the East Coast used to be farms, and so the farmers often just dropped a dead car onto the farmland. And so now those are part of the parks. People like to hide magnetic geocaches there, but there are rusted metal edges and broken glass, and you need to be very careful. Finally, trash. It's not a hazard, but a nuisance, particularly if a geocache is hidden around a convenience store. There's often some trash hanging around. Now, a tip about keeping insects off your body. It turns out I'm a magnet for the vampire trio. My daughter, who is an RN, tells me it may be my unusual blood type, which is AB, that attracts them. Permethrin is an insecticide spray. Notice I didn't say repellent. It's an insecticide spray for clothing. It is strong stuff. And insects that land on my clothing that I spray with permethrin will die within a few seconds. I spray my hiking pants with permethrin. I wear long pants in the woods to keep the poison ivy from touching me, but it also allows me to kill the insects. The permethrin spray lasts for a month or until I wash the pants again. When I'm ready to hike, the last thing I do, I pull my socks up over my pants cuffs and I spray the socks and my hiking boots with DEET or Picardin. Those are good, strong DEET, like off-DEET woods, strong high percentage of DEET, and they do a great job on those things. And the socks over the pants cuffs make sure that anything that lands on my socks or my boots can't climb up inside my pants. If gnats are present, then I spray my hat with DEET or Picardin as well. I carry a backpack when I'm in the woods. The main reason, the original reason, was to carry a first aid kit. And nowadays you can buy a spray can of lidocaine painkiller, which is extremely valuable if you get stung by a bee or a yellow jacket, for instance. Water bottle or Gatorade, it's important to stay hydrated. DEET or Picardin spray can to spray. If the gnats show up, I can spray my hat. A lightweight windbreaker, an umbrella, and a poncho. The ponchos actually cost less than the umbrella. If the weather changes, those things are very valuable. I carry some small trade goods. Primarily, I have some arcade tokens from the putt-putt chain of mini golf courses, and I have arcade tokens from the Cape May Lewis ferry boat. They're not the usual anonymous things. They're very nice arcade tokens. I do also carry some repair materials for geocaches: duct tape, replacement pens, replacement logbooks, and zipper seal plastic bags to protect those logbooks, keep the water out. Flashlight, look for looking in dim areas. Inspection mirror, that is a 2 by 3 inch mirror with a telescoping handle that you can buy at auto parts stores. And finally, hand shears for those thorny vines. I also carry a power bank battery to recharge my smartphone or tablet if it needs that while I'm on the hike. Some more jargon, mostly acronyms this time. FTF for first to find, CO for cache owner, we already mentioned. TFTC at the bottom of a log on the web page simply means thanks for the cache. P&G, park and grab, a cache close to parking like the first one on the virtual field trip. C&D, cache and dash, means exactly the same thing. GZ, ground zero, you'll see that referenced a lot in logs. That means the location of a geocache. Swag, I mentioned that earlier, trade goods inside a cache. The etiquette is if you take something out of a cache, you should put something into a cache. Some more things, tools of the trade, that is also an acronym, TOTT. Gloves, good things for guardrails. Hats with a wide brim to ward off branches and gnats and so forth, and the sun. Tweezers for removing logs from nano caches. Tongs to pull caches out of tight spaces like guardrails. Those are all useful tools of the trade. And there are even social events for geocachers. They're called event caches, and they list the date, time, and place for geocacher gatherings. The largest one is Geo Woodstock. Recent years, it's been drawing 4,000 or more attendees annually. And believe it or not, when you attend an event, it counts as a cache find for you if you sign the event logbook. Sometimes events even introduce new physical caches, so you can be the first to find those on the day of the event. Bragging points. First to find is a bragging point. Total find count above 1,000. When I first started going to events, I found out that just about everybody else I met had already found 1,000. So I set out to do that. You can find the oldest cache in a state. Here in Virginia, it's actually fairly near me in Burke Lake Park. There is a state park in Delaware, Trap Pond State Park, where the oldest cache in Delaware resides. And the one depicted here is in Kansas. It's called Mingo. It's right by the Interstate 70 exit for Mingo. And believe it or not, folks, this is the oldest active cache in the world. We found it in 2012. Another thing you can do to impress people, find caches in 4 or more U.S. states in one day. And a very well-known example of that, there is a section of Interstate 81 that runs through Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania in just 44 miles. It's easy to do that 4 in one day on that stretch. There's a lot of geocaches there. I found another one like that. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont on I-91. And if you go to Brattleboro, Vermont, you can cross the river and find caches in New Hampshire. All of that in just 65 miles. Now, when you're outside, nobody buys a handheld GPS receiver for geocaching anymore. And this is what's really made the game superbly popular in the last 10 years. A free geocaching app is available for your smartphone or tablet. You'll need to tell the app your geocaching.com account name and password so that it can log in and obtain information from geocaching.com. Geocaching apps use, in fact, 3 data sources: geocaching.com itself through the internet, GPS satellite radio signals to determine your own location, and online maps to show your location and your cache locations nearby. For iOS, take a look at Geocaches with a capital C after the word geo. That's a freebie. And for Android, CGeo, the one I use, that is developed in Germany. It is a brilliant application and is free. This is the last slide. In forested areas with no cell tower nearby, it is valuable to provide ways for the app to access map and cache details because you don't have access to the internet under those circumstances. And that's true in many national parks, especially out west. Yellowstone's a very good example of that. Offline maps are available for free from mapsforge.com. Storage on your phone for the lower 48 maps will take roughly 6 gigabytes. And if you don't need the entire lower 48 states, you can download 1 state at a time or 1 region at a time. The app itself provides the ability to store cache details on your phone. The storage space per cache is roughly 30 kilobytes, so you can afford to store a few hundred. And the last thing I'd recommend, another tip, consider using a retired smartphone to run your geocaching app. So when you're outdoors, make sure that all the geocaches you want to find were stored on the phone while it had access to Wi-Fi at home. What that does is allow you to minimize battery use on your current smartphone, so it still is fresh in case you need to make a call. That's it. I'm done. Come look at the website of my club, the Potomac Area Technology and Computer Society, and you can even get in touch with me through the email address I show you there.